Okay, good morning, everyone. We are going to be going over the Great Goddess today. Okay, so the Great Goddess is it's like a large archetype that houses all of the archetypes of the goddess. Okay, so I used this deck, which is one of my favorite decks, to help me decide like which goddesses we were going to do this year. And the one that I pulled, the very first one that I pulled, hi Abigail, good morning, was the Great Goddess. So I'm going to start us with that reading. And then I took a little bit of liberty with like developing it as an actual topic, like a coven topic for us today. So this is what she looks like in this deck. It's one of my favorites. It makes me think of Hawaii. I pulled this card right before I went to Hawaii for the first time. And I was like, what am I going to connect to in Hawaii? And it was the Great Goddess. And I was like, okay, I tend to experience the Great Goddess through very primordial type of goddess energy. An example of that would be like Pele. When I was in Hawaii, which was like a ginormous creation-based goddess, where they like you fear, there's a level of fear because they're so big. And so we're going to talk about the triple goddess. Have you guys heard about the triple goddess yet? I'm assuming you have. So we're going to talk about the Great Goddess through the lens of the triple goddess, and then we're going to break it down into maiden energy, mother energy, and crone energy. All right. So there is some ritual in this class, but you don't have to have anything present today other than a sheet of paper and a pen. Okay. So, and you're going to want your deck of choice. So those like what you typically have, that's all you need for class today. Now I'm going to teach you guys how to like cast and create altars. And today you're going to leave with a sense of what goddess is pulling on you, as well as what it's trying to cultivate, like that archetype of the goddess is trying to cultivate in you. All right. So that's what we're going to leave with today. For those of you that are watching the replay, you can always use a deck, like a goddess oriented deck. If you don't have one, I love this one. It's Colette Baron-Reid's Goddess Power Oracle. And then I really like this one too. It's new and it's by, her name is Annette Pierso. She's on Etsy as like Anteliers or something like that. But it's this guidance of the Goddess Oracle deck. It's awesome. It's got a lot of different goddess archetypes in here. And she creates this like very specific art. So that's like part of what she does. So, if you don't have a goddess deck, you might want one. I work with my goddess decks a lot because that's the particular energy that I'm working with is goddess energy, and in a larger concept, the divine feminine. So just to kind of like backtrack a little bit, when I came into this like witchy world, I did not understand that essentially what I was really looking for, but did not understand at that time, was to look at spirituality through a feminine lens. Like I did not understand when I deconstructed, and I'm actually about to talk about this on my podcast that I'm doing today. When I deconstructed, I did not realize that I was a mystic. I did not realize that at the end of the day, like, I don't know how to live in this sense of like, I'm not connected to something bigger than myself. Like I am at the end of the day, a priestess. Like I believe in something bigger than myself. When I went through my deconstruction, which was like through Christianity, which is extremely patriarchal, I did not understand the patriarchal lens that I was living in. So like, I didn't know what I was dealing with. Most of you guys probably didn't either. But what I think is funny looking back is that I always connected with the Holy Spirit, right? Which is that like mystical felt sense of like fluidity in spirit, in Christianity. And guess who that is? Shekinah, the feminine face of God. So it has taken me quite a while to really understand, and I think that it is a bit of Saturn about to move into Pisces for me that is helping me really understand and reconstruct that I am not that different as a witchy goddess serving person as I was as a Christian. Like, I feel like I really am finally like sitting with that. The difference between the divine feminine that I've experienced in the witch world is that it is largely about not casting your beliefs on other people and making them feel fearful when they don't submit to what you want, right? Like, that is a very patriarchal concept. So at the end of the day, like, what I've really sat with in this past season is like, what the hell am I actually really trying to do? Like, what is the point of witchcraft? What is the point of the things that I'm doing? And this class, putting together this class over the last couple of weeks has been really helpful for me. And hopefully it's going to be helpful for you. And that is understanding, like, at the end of the day, I am just as much as a spirit serving mystic as I was as a Christian. I'm just looking at it, and I choose to look at it through a different lens. And that lens is through the feminine. So hopefully that makes sense. So what we're talking about today, the great goddess, is a very large, broad spectrum. So have you guys ever seen the triple goddess symbol? Of course you have, because you're in my programs where there's like the circle and then the 2 crescent moons on the side. That is the symbol for the triple goddess. All right. Now, just to give you guys some history, that concept of the triple goddess is as old as like written language and religion and time. It's even older, actually. And it is this concept of being connected to the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the earth, the cycles of bleeding and not bleeding, and then the cycles of the outright like feminine experience. The triple goddess is for everyone, like particularly people with bleeding bodies. Like, it is our right to be able to connect to this symbol and feel it empowered within us, because what the triple goddess is really about is about recognizing the rites of passage for female identified or bleeding body folks in general. Now, everybody has a womb. I'll fight on that one. Everybody has a womb space. I don't care what genitalia you were born with. Don't care. Everyone has a womb space. It is called your sacral chakra. It is where we have this cauldron that's always brewing within us. That is the things that are bubbling in us, our creativity. And so for people that have uteruses, however, they have the ability to actually form, knit, and birth life. Like, I can't think of anything actually more magical, except for the fact that not only can you form, knit, and birth life, but then you can literally just feed it through your own body. Like, what? Like, there is a reason why before patriarchy, the goddess was known as like the goddess, because people were absolutely enamored with the idea that like a woman could just all of a sudden like be pregnant, birth a life, and then sustain a life like through its body. So like taking away all the science and all of the education that we have now, thinking through the lens of like a primordial mind, human mind, like how crazy it would be that all of a sudden like a person just like had a belly and then boom, life is here. You would be like, they are the answer to everything, right? And so there's a really, really great book called When God Was a Woman. And it's a really, really powerful book that helped to shape my understanding of the lens of the goddess early in my deconstruction. So hopefully that helps to kind of like bring some breadth to the topic. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start our crack open with reading this. And then I'm going to ask you guys if you have any like felt experience from what I shared in my crack open. If you've noticed anything similar in your own experience, or if that still feels far from you, whatever comes up for you. Okay. So the great goddess, sacred unity. Now is the time to view your world through a reverent and clear lens of unity and connection. The domain of the great goddess, the creatrix of all life and the great mother of all. It is time to leave behind the right and the wrong, the good, the bad, the zero-sum game world behind. Enter into the space where you can find the sacred ground of sharing without guile. Work from the desire that everyone benefits. Look at others as if they are a reflection of yourself. Take a humble and yet grounded approach to your life right now. Be accountable for the energy you put out into the world and be aware of how you influence your own surroundings. The great goddess reminds you that you may see yourself as different than others, but you are all one in her presence. Treat others as you would like to be treated, and miracles abound. This is truly an auspicious time in your life to grow and expand. Okay, so that being said, I just want to create a space for you guys to be able to share, like, what have you found in your experience with working with the goddess, especially like in comparison to maybe the religion or the experience you grew up with, or whatever comes up for you.
I'll share a little bit. I guess I'm kind of, so I come from a Christian
Oh,
background.
wait, hold on. I can't hear you very well. 1 second. I can't hear you yet.
No, is it better now?
A little bit. Wait. Keep talking.
I don't know what's going on with my computer.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Maybe I just have to shout into it. Just yell at you guys. So I feel like I'm very new to the idea of like even just thinking of God as feminine or even genderless, but it resonates so much more. Like coming from a Christian background where, you know, there's only a male deity and he has those characteristics of like judgment and like those types of things that just don't seem like a loving God description type of thing. But then when you switch it to like a motherly or feminine creator, like it just seems to make so much more sense. And it kind of like, it settles into my body a lot easier. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like it still hasn't settled and I haven't done a lot of goddess work. But it makes so much more sense. And like, I want to go that direction. Whereas before it was like, okay, I'm stuck with this idea of God kind of thing, if that makes sense. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, like the early phases of like still kind of deconstructing and detangling yourself. Would you consider yourself like at a place where you're open to the idea of something being bigger than you, or like does it still feel mystical for you, or does that part feel still like a bit, strange?
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels exciting to be like learning all of this. And I'm totally open to like finding one that resonates. I was really excited when you announced this series over the year, because I hear a lot about goddesses in the different circles that I'm a part of, but none of them have really seemed like mine or one that I would sort of, work with for a while. So I'm totally open to it. I think it sounds exciting, like kind of like it would open up more for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That spurs me to want to talk about one other thing, like when we are done with shares, and that is the difference between working with an archetype and working with the actual deity. There's a difference. So I'll touch on that as well. Okay. Who else?
Okay.
Yeah. Tell us, Cheryl.
So, like now, I don't really even sometimes want to think about God because,
Yeah.
like, from my upbringing, that I put myself in the church, it was God was a he. There was no even thinking that he was a she, and it was always this is right and that is wrong, and it
Yeah.
was very it was, I mean, everything was either right or wrong, and it really affected me. It affected me for many years. And yeah, so I don't even want to think about it anymore because it was so defined and so hindering.
Yeah. No, that's why that's a large part, thank you for sharing that. That's a large part of why I ask, and I don't assume that everybody that's working with me, it has not come back to the idea of like putting your faith in something bigger than yourself. Like there are some people, I would say probably 25% of the people that I work with that came out of church never go back to believing and like working with the concept of something being bigger than themselves. When I first came to this is why I share my story about it, to hopefully create transparency and space for those that feel the same way. When I first came to this path, I was really fed up with the idea of there being some sort of something bigger than me. That actually felt very disempowering to me, because I really needed the part of my journey to rebel and bucket off. Like I needed to be sovereign. Like the idea that like I can't make my choices and that there's something bigger than me that could control it was not helpful to me. And it does allow me to also say that one of the other things that the divine feminine teachings have like within its bracket that patriarchal religion doesn't have is that the divine feminine holds within it the concept of sovereignty. And that is, you are unto yourself, your body unto yourself. You create life unto yourself. Like you get to work with, not for a deity, but with the deity, right? Or even just an archetype or a concept. And so it's really important to, like, as a facilitator, for me to make sure you understand, you don't have to believe or work with something as a deity. You don't ever. You really don't. You can work with things as like an archetype, as like, developing different parts of yourself. It really and truly is a choice. And I tell people this a lot, and that is like, at the end of the day, I am a mystic, meaning I don't have to understand how it works to get something from it. I need to feel an emotional connection to it. And one thing that I realized through my own deconstruction and reconstruction process is that I don't know if deities are real. They're probably not. I don't know. But what it does is it brings me peace. It makes me feel more peaceful. And I have tried to live as a mystic without being service to something spiritual bigger than me, and I suffer. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my mental health. It doesn't make me feel empowered. So like, that's why I always tell people, like, at the end of the day, I have a priestess and a mystic. And so I consciously choose to work with the feminine face of God. Whether it's real or not, who knows, but it brings me peace. So that's all that matters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but like when you're working with a particular goddess, or I know there's a particular goddess that has a hold on you and they say like, I'm not letting you go. Do you feel like they ever dictate to you? Like I said, like when I was in church, I felt like it was really, to me, the people dictating, saying that God says this or whatever. Do you feel like the goddesses are ever dictating to you?
So I don't work with any of the goddesses that really are that way. The one that I feel like has been very fate oriented, but at the end of the day, like I learned the most from them is the dark goddesses. And so that would be Lilith and Kali. Another one that comes to the mind is the Morrigan. They're very tied to these concepts of like fate. But it also depends on the mythology that you get pulled into. So the only goddesses that I feel like have claim on me, and that takes a lot of time to process, are Lakshmi. And she is like a mother goddess of the Hindu philosophy. And she's super big, like, and all the Hindu goddesses are very like Eastern mind, kind of Buddhist, they're not like some of the other, like the Morrigan, right? Like the Morrigan is very like fate. And then the only other one is Lilith. And Lilith was the one who called me out. And at the end of the day, Lilith is so wild that she is just like, I'm here when you need me. Like she's so big, she's so wild, she's so primordial that she doesn't have a will. She has no will for your life. She's just like, you do what you want. Like she's so wild. So a lot of it boils down to the energy that you're drawn to. So for example, I have quite a few friends that are very steeped in witchcraft that are like priestesses of Hecate or Hecate, however people explain it. I really have shied away from Hecate because she seems to very much have devout followers. Like that is your lineage. That's who you work with. You don't work with anyone else. And I have really gone out of my way to make sure to be very, very cautious about working with Hecate, because I feel like she requires solo focus. All of the deities that I work with are all facets. First of all, they're all facets of the same great mother, which is what we're going to talk about today. But all of the ones that I work with, sovereignty at the center point of their work is what I'm always looking for. I want to know at the end of the day that they're there to support me, but they're there to support me in my choices and not like theirs. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Okay. Now here's where it gets interesting. And this is where I was actually having this conversation with one of my life coaching clients right now. And she's deconstructing and she's like, well, what if I want something and like, it's not in the cards for me? What does that mean? And I'm like, well, this is a gray topic. Okay. This is what you would call gray area. Because some people believe that they're, like whatever, you can cultivate whatever. Here's what I believe as a mystic. And like, it does not matter what I believe, only it just is, this is my teaching around this. And that is where I tend to see people get into trouble is when they go, when they go banging on doors that don't open, and then they go and they summon energy from somebody, some entity that will do it regardless. That's where you start to get into some interesting waters, because that means that you are trying to bypass a larger like will for your life, which again is a very gray area. I think it has to be in body attuned to you. So for example, there is like a certain thing that I'm like, I've had like a lot of like this smear campaign, and I'm like it's very, very infuriating. For me, my humanity is like, fuck that, hex them. Let them like see themselves, like there's this very real, like angry part of me. But my guides are like, let it go. Like cut your losses, move on, turn 180 degrees the other way. Do not get involved in this like high school drama, like move on, level up, move on. But my humanity, my ego is like, no, I want them to pay. And then I feel my guides are like, don't involve yourself in this, like move on. Don't use your energy for this. Use your energy to focus on something better. So do you see the duality of like, there's a higher part of me, whether that is just me or my guides, who knows, they work. And then there's this other part of me that is very human and it wants what it wants. So I consciously choose every day to trust the higher voice, whoever that really is. I don't know. It feels very Nordic. It feels very like Freya, like very Freya energy. And I recognize that I'm going to follow that path. However, I know that if I tried to summon energy in that direction, my guides would not support me in that. And I would have to go and connect to other energy that is not in alignment with my highest guidance to send energy in that direction. Does that make sense? That is where you can get in trouble. All right. And again, another gray area. That's just what I believe. And that's what I teach. So it's the same kind of concept with like your craft. Like you will know what is like right for you in your body. And if you don't know yet, that's what needs to be cultivated, is deeper connection to yourself, to your body, and to the earth. Because if you cannot connect to your intuition, if you cannot connect to your body and to your sense of like what is neutral ground, you're not really ready to cast big spells. You're not really ready yet because you got to know yourself well enough. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of like I know you well enough, Cheryl, like at this point, I think you would be like great working with like Lakshmi. Like Lakshmi, I think would be a wonderful presence for you. Like a soft, feminine, Sophia would be great, because I do think that I felt the exact same way, Cheryl, when I came in to this world. I did not want anything to do with anything feeling like it had power over me. Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
have it right here. I have it right here. Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
so beautiful because she is the feminine face of God.
Yeah.
She is like the feminine face of Christianity too. She's the one that, wove the earth. And so it's the same kind of thing with like Shakti in the Hindu theology. Like it's the feminine primordial face. It is embodiment. All right. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. And I'm not afraid at all to work with these people. We've been talking about it for a while, right? And I have Aphrodite right here, the picture that I bought. So, and I get to see Jessica. I have our one-on-one on Friday. I see Jessica also, and I'm going to ask her.
Yeah.
Remember, you ask her.
Yeah.
But everything you just said too, I relate to also. And it's just like when I was in the church, my own, I was told this isn't right. Don't do it. God's not going to support it. So it's the same thing. It's just a different.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I always say. Like it's same shit, different day. Like, but at the end of the day, the big thing that the goddess path provides is like you do what you want. You're sovereign. And that is part of the goddess path. Like that is a part of it. It's not a part of the patriarchal path. it's not a part of the father path,
Yeah. I like it. It's just like when we were 3 and 4 years old, we knew what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like a large part of it is it is characterized by the culture. And so, as we move into this new era and this new earth, like the culture is contributing to the idea of sovereignty versus martyrdom, and that is part of what Saturn and Pisces is going to be about shifting, is breaking down the idea of martyrdom is spiritual service. Like it's just a different twist. So hopefully that's helpful to you.
Yeah, thank you a million times.
Of course. Abigail, what about you? What are your thoughts, feelings?
I think for me, I grew up in a very religious family too. And I think in some ways that helped me because it drew attention to a connection to a higher power very early on. And I think I had a really strong connection. Like when I think of God, or I definitely connected to the spirit more, it was a huge source of comfort and peace for me. But I think where the disconnect came in was then you would go to church or like youth groups and stuff, and it would be like, oh, your intuition is wrong, or like, let me tell you how you feel about this, or anything like that. And I think that's where I kind of started questioning things, where I'm like, I can't just believe this because you tell me to. Like, I don't feel connected to that at all. And so I think, I don't know, I think connecting to spirit is really important to me, but I don't really know what that looks like yet. So I was really excited about learning about the goddesses this year too. And I would be curious, I guess I haven't really worked with goddesses at all, but it kind of sounds like, it reminds me kind of like parts work when you would talk about that, where it's like connecting to different energies or emotions and reactions. And I don't know if that's accurate, but I feel like learning about different goddesses would help me when I come across different things, like know how to process or react or approach things.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is good stuff. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm writing down a couple of things that you're saying so I can touch on them in the podcast I'm recording right after this, because I feel like there are things that everybody questions, but it's weird when you get far enough down in a path, you kind of forget your original like questions or the things you wrestle with because you're just like in it, So thank you guys for your responses. They're very genuine. So it is much like parts work. And that is why I tell people, like, you work with the thing that works. So for me, I know I'm a mystic. It feels the most powerful for me when it feels like I'm working with something higher than me. This is also my Uranus and my Capricorn, like in the same house. Like I am a mystic, like through and through. All right. That is who I am. I've wrestled with that part of myself. At the end of the day, it's who I am. Knowing who you are and what you need is helpful, but recognizing that in different seasons, we will probably need to cultivate different things is very important. Have you guys seen like these, these memes going around that's like, I'm in my slut era, or like, I'm in my, have you guys seen those? I know Cheryl, you're like, no. There's like these ideas, it's kind of like this cultural thing that's like, I'm in my slut era, I'm in my like witch era, I'm in my like bad girl era or whatever. It's kind of like that. We have certain parts of ourselves that are underdeveloped and overdeveloped. And it's not uncommon to work with like an archetype or a myth to help you cultivate and develop the parts of yourself that need to be cultivated. It's a very, very powerful way to do it. We've been doing it all of our life. The idea, like all three of you came out of Christianity. So we were told to tailor our lives and like look up to like the Proverbs 31 woman, right? What are the characteristics of this Proverb 31 woman? Or to the characteristics of Christ, right? To be giving, unto death and to blah, 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 blah. Like these are archetypes. These are characteristics that we were told to develop and cultivate within ourselves. It's the same concept. All right. It's the same concept. So for example, I went through my Lilith era. All right. And I'm at the place now. I'm settled down. I'm remarried. I just want peace. I just want like softness and goodness and ease. Working with Lilith does not make sense to me right now. Now she's literally right behind me on my altar. I still love her. She is the primordial mother to me. She's who got me here. I will always honor her. I will always respect her. And she is a large part of the work that I do to help particularly female identified folks liberate themselves, because she is a goddess of liberation and sovereignty. I just don't personally feel like I need to actively work with Lilith right now for my own life. She's much like Kali, which is like, she keeps bringing shadow towards us to defeat it, to overcome it, to find the light within ourselves. That is their point. They're not meant to leave us in darkness and shadow. They're meant to help us cultivate the light within us. And we do that by facing the darker parts of ourselves so that we love them. It's wholeness work, right? But they do it through like visceral means. I personally don't feel like I need to continue digging at my shadow right now. I feel like I actually need to cultivate an underdeveloped part of me at this point. And that is like the luminous healer in me, like the goddess, like the golden goddess in me. The way that my parts, Abigail, you name that, the way that my parts think about it is like my Lilith Kali energy. Her name is the burning one. That part of myself, her name is the burning one. And then like my Lakshmi, like healer, she's known as the basket weaver. They have the same focus. They just do it in different ways. I feel like my burning one needs a break. I feel like she's tired of fighting. And I feel like my basket weaver needs some cultivation. When I lean into the basket weaver, she also has this other part of herself that is the red priestess, right? And so there's these different parts of ourselves that we can cultivate. However, I personally choose, because it works for me, to utilize and to work with certain archetypes of goddesses that I feel like I need to develop it within myself. Now, where it gets a little complicated and like it has to be personal to each of your own practices is that for me, when I feel like a goddess is choosing me, it does not feel like I'm just doing archetype work. When I feel like a goddess is hunting me down, meaning like they're everywhere, I keep seeing signs over and over and over, I recognize that it's not just a call to cultivate a part of myself, but a time period for me to be working with and in devotion to this aspect of the goddess within myself and separate from myself. Does that make sense? You do not have to do that. You don't have to do any of this. It's just teaching. For some of you, you're going to be like, this was awesome. And some of you are going to be like, not my thing. And that's okay. But what you can do is you can be like, this goddess, her energy keeps showing up in my life. Here's what she represents. So this is what I'm going to work on cultivating in my life at this period of time. Does that make sense with like the difference between like archetypal energy cultivation and then working with deity? Does that do you feel the difference there? Do you guys have any questions about that? No? Okay. There is nothing I can offer you to help you understand exactly the difference other than you have to trust yourself. You can test the spirits, like you can test them. So for example, like my closest patron goddess that I work with is Bridget. And Bridget is very much like the feminine face of Jesus. All right. They have similar miracles. There's similar energy. Bridget is like badass. I love Bridget. She will always be a patron to me. But then there's two others that have really shown up in my life. The other is Ellen of the Ways, and she is like the shamanic goddess of Welsh religion, of like Welsh tradition. And then the other is Freya, and she is like Nordic. Now, I have not been very close to Freya until like last year. She would like literally not leave me alone. Every card I pull, Freya. Every card I pull, Nordic. Every card I pull, runes. Like she was hunting me. All right. I can't like not see it. I would have dreams about her. She'd show up like I feel, like she's there. I had that happen to me with Lakshmi and Saraswati, like through the Hindu lineage. It's just something that like my psychic senses or my guidance team, they know how to get my attention at this point. Okay. Like it's not hard. Like they know what to do. But I get these synchronicities all over the place. And I'm like, okay, in this season, this is who I'm working with. Now, here's the one thing. If you notice, like if you ever come to my house, I have goddesses everywhere. I have altars all over my house. Behind me on the hearth, I have Lilith, Ellen of the Ways, Bridget, Kuan Yin, Freya, the Black Madonna. Like I've got all of these different goddesses up on my altar. Once I work with them, they never leave me. They're with me. All right. I have like pictures of goddesses all over my wall. They're all with me, because the point of this teaching today is that the great goddess, she houses all of these facets. All right. She houses all of them. In the same way, and this is going to blow your mind, in the same way that Jesus Christ is just a facet of the sacred masculine. Like he's just one version. He's just one face. He's just one archetype of the sacred masculine. There's Krishna, there's Buddha, there's Kathumi, like there's all of these different faces of Christ. And even Christ has his own archetypes. There's like the white Budweiser, NRA Jesus, there's like the Jewish Jesus. There's like all of these different archetypes of Jesus, because so many people have their own understanding of who they think Christ is. So even Jesus has his own facets. Go ahead, Cheryl.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Do people argue over, it seems like people argue over who Christ is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But people don't argue over the different goddesses.
No, because the goddesses never force the idea that there's only one God, there's only one sun, and there's only one way. So one way to kind of argue that there is a version of them fighting is that one patriarchal religion believes it's Muhammad. Another believes that it's God, right? Like Elohim. And then the other believes that it's Jesus Christ or Yeshua, right? So we're looking at Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, like the three major patriarchal faiths. So they kind of argue over the same concept, but they're arguing, right? Like when you look at the feminine tradition, they're like, whatever floats your boat, man, because almost all of the feminine religions are polytheistic. Like they don't care. They're just like, it's the great mother, like if you look at the feminine religions, most of them are polytheistic, meaning that there's a multitude of the faces of God, depending on which one you connect to.
Yeah, you should have did this a long time ago, so you could have dragged me out of all that shit a long time ago.
This what I'm teaching you right here is like the first class that I teach in the apprenticeship. So like it's a large part of the teaching that I do. Like, but you have to understand that like also the other thing about the feminine is that the feminine is embodied. She is the embodied spiritual experience. She is the cycle. She is the season. She is the beginning. She is the end. So part of the feminine spiritual path is to learn through time and embodied experience. Whereas the masculine, it rules consciousness. It's the mind. It's the seed of thought. So you don't embody it. You think your way through it. It's just different, And so part of it in terms of teaching is me as a teacher being very honest. That's like, I'm learning this with you guys. Like it's every season I get better. Every season I get more clear, just like you are, because it's embodied,
And so I'm wondering how much of this teaching, upbringing young had really a lot to do with my own self-esteem.
Mm, yeah. Have you, well, all of you, have you guys ever listened to my podcast on the one that I did a long time ago called Your Heart is Good?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. I'll add it into the coven today, like when I share this, because that's a helpful one, because like it's important to recognize, like at the end of the day, exactly what Abigail said, which is like they literally broke us down to where we couldn't believe ourselves, we couldn't believe our bodies, and everything was the enemy that wasn't basically our pastor's voice, like, and their interpretation of the Bible, and like how disempowering and codependent that is. So like that these are like big teachings. It just depends on where you want to start, right? And that is, I was going to start the entire goddess teachings with Great Goddess. That was the original plan. But the way that it started, I was like, you know what? I want them to be ready for Imbolc, to make the most of Imbolc. So that my intention was to do this one first and then do Bridget. So you get like a bigger concept. But I didn't want you guys to miss out on like the magic of Imbolc. So, but yes, they're big concepts. It just, the only place that we can really start is with ourselves. And I will say that one thing that traditional patriarchal religion does have well is the ability to like really create this like large story that everyone feels like they have to follow. And it's harder for the feminine because the feminine is rooted in like, what is your experience? So like as a person who was a Christian spiritual teacher that specialized in discipleship training, I can tell you teaching evangelical Christianity was a fuck ton easier than it is teaching the divine feminine, because the divine feminine, everything is personalized. Everything is like, well, what does your body tell you? It's not like I can like create this like broad across the board, like this is what you believe and here's how it's going to land. And if it doesn't, you're going to hell. Like, it's like this, like, well, how does that feel to you? I think you're going to have to make it through a whole wheel of the year to really embody that. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much harder to like take out into the world as like a brand and package and a message. It is literally like, where do you feel that? And time might be the answer. It's just different. So, you know, and the thing about the divine feminine is that the divine feminine is so much bigger than just goddesses. The divine feminine is really this overarching concept of being embodied and moving with seasons and cycles versus trying to force it. And at even the greatest level, it is like about being transparent. So I had this teaching that I got when I was at the Wild Woman Festival in New York in 2019. And we had this incredible Toltec shaman come and teach us. And she's like taught this huge, long, amazing ritual ceremony. She taught all these things. But she said one thing that like blew my mind forever. And that is, she was talking about the offerings that were made to the male deities, even in Toltec teachings, versus the feminine deities. So the male deities, they wanted to be worshiped, praised, and honored. Okay, that's what the male deities wanted. I asked, like, well, what do the feminine deities wanted? And she said, they want your pain. They want you to be transparent with them. They want you to give them your pain so that she can recycle it and get closer to you and turn it back into life again. My mind was like blown. I was like, I'm going with the goddess, you know, like that. So there's just these, it's just different. It's just completely different. And where we get into the risk of danger is by thinking that anything masculine is bad. It's not. It's just been so like grabbed and marketed and turned from a message into an empire. And the masculine needs the feminine to rebalance, but the masculine and the feminine actually need each other so that we don't create the same thing on the opposite side of the pendulum swing. Okay. Like we need both. And so we need consciousness that is masculine. We need the clarity of thought. We need the clarity of integrity and the clarity of like right choice. Where it gets sideways is the idea that the right choice is only one right choice. That is not unique to what is felt and real in our own bodies. That's the feminine. Do you see how they need each other to work? Right? So like the dark side of only the feminine would be like this idea that it doesn't feel right in my body to help other people, so I'm just not going to do it. Right? So it's like, but then we need the masculine thought that's like, well, that's not really thinking about the entirety of this world, right? So like we need both to be balanced. However, we're so far in patriarchy, which is toxic masculinity. Patriarchy is toxic masculinity. The sacred masculine is beautiful. The sacred masculine creates the container. Have you guys ever heard me say like, casting a spell without a container is like trying to cook soup without a pot? Have you guys ever heard me say that? Like feminine work without the container that the masculine provides is like cooking soup without a pot. It doesn't have anywhere to hold. We need both. Both have to be cultivated within. However, we just have so much masculine influence in our culture, especially our spiritual culture, that we have to go out of our way to cultivate the feminine again. We just really have to pull it back up. But there will be a time where the feminine has to have a container again. She's going to have to be balanced. You know, we're just not there yet. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the slides so that we don't run out of time. And we'll talk about some of these different faces from a more like specific lens. And then I will show you how to I'm going to show you how to work on this stuff. Okay. All right. Let me just pop this up. All righty. The great goddess. So let me just tell you a couple of, oh, I forgot to edit the time on the Mystic Musings. Sorry, guys. The Mystic Musings are not on December 20th. They're going to be in March. I just don't remember right now, so bear with me. Coven is being moved from Fridays to Sundays for the time being, like for the remainder of the year. This year's Coven's focus is on goddesses, which we know, and then the Wild Apprenticeship is still open for registration. There are 4 spots left. This I know I've been saying it in small spaces. It's about to become more public as of this week, but this is the last time I'm running apprenticeship. I'm really going to start moving forward with one-on-one work, and then going from there, moving on. So if you know that you've been interested in like learning these deeper teachings that are like craft, ritual, embodiment based, jump on the spot, jump on it. If you have any questions, reach out. For those of you that are here, and then those of you that are watching, there's no pressure. It's just, I'm not going to run it like this again. So, I'm really interested to see what's about to be birthed through me, but I know something new is coming, that is just a little bit more open for if I like wanted to have a baby, you know? So it's just a different thing. Okay. So some energetics. We are moving from the rebirth of the year, which is Imbolc, to spring equinox, which is the return of light and the rebalancing of light and dark in the sky. We are super close, guys. Like we're like just a couple of weeks away from spring equinox. Like I go walk around my property every day. There's little like shoots coming up out of the ground, like the daffodils. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm just so thrilled. I love spring because it just like, you can physically feel the return of life and like that vital energy. I feel like you can just feel it at any time more than any other, at least in Ohio. Like you can really feel the shift in Ohio. All right. So use the next 6 weeks to focus on the seeds of intention that you plan to plant and harvest this year. What that means is like from an anthropological perspective, this is when our ancestors were literally like looking at their seeds and considering their land to see like, what do I think I'm going to yield the most of this year based on what I'm working with. So it's time to start thinking about like, you know, 2 things maybe that you're like, I've been working on this and I want to work on it. And maybe one thing that's new, you know, like a whole new crop that you want to play with. And then the last thing is releasing your hopes into the universe. Tomorrow is the new moon in Pisces. In my opinion, it's the best new moon of the year. Totally new beginnings, man. New healing, new beginning requires surrender and faith. But it's a new opportunity. And then if you want to learn magic in like a very particular container, like a very, very held container, consider joining my friendship. All right. Let's talk about her. So the great goddess. The great goddess embodies the entirety of the divine feminine in all of her forms in one large archetypal energy. She is comprised of all parts of the goddess, maiden, mother, crone, light, and dark, and everything in between. She is also called the Great Mother. She is the primordial energy that creates form and holds form. In the Hindu pantheon, they call this Shakti, and she is the creative source of life. So another word for her is the great creatrix. So in the masculine, they call it creator. In the feminine, she is known as the creatrix. Okay. So here are some visuals, and here is our maiden, our mother, and our crone. All right. Now, they're all different kinds of goddesses. Some embody all 3, meaning that within them, they have all 3 of the aspects. Spoiler alert. Us as individuals, we have all 3 of them within us. Like we do. We have all 3 of them within us that we embody over the course of our lifetime. Okay. However, we can go through different parts of these energies at different parts of our lives. There are some parts that are based on physiology, and then there's some parts based on like energetically where we're at in our lifetime. So we'll talk about those. So the triple goddess in her own right, she is a concept / goddess archetype that connects all 3 aspects of the maiden, mother, and crone in one. This goddess represents all the phases of the moon, all the phases of the seasons, all the phases of also the menstrual cycle, and all of the energies of the goddess. The great goddess is the triple goddess in total. She is the great mother. All right. So we'll talk about these in terms of also the physicality. I created these a long time ago, so I realized that I didn't add probably like where things are in terms of like the menstrual cycle. But the maiden is like before you have your cycle, before you have your first moon. And then she's like the follicular phase, you know, she's like that early part of the cycle where you have a lot of energy and you're excited about all the opportunities. Okay. She is represented by the waxing moon and is associated with late winter through springtime. She's also associated with Imbolc, Ostara, and Beltane. Maiden energy is youthful curiosity, openness, and a sense of adventure. She is the energy of new beginnings. Maiden includes the Greek Persephone and Artemis and the Celtic Rhiannon, right? The classic fairy tale princess, charming but unable to make good decisions and problem solve, and is usually in the form of being rescued by a dashing prince, okay? So it's always nice to stop here for a minute and be like, do I connect to the maiden? Like, do I have any maiden energy in me right now? For myself, I am like, oh no, I am definitely Mother Crone right now in this phase of my life. Like the idea that I don't get to like solve problems and I want somebody to come save me. I'm like, I wish I want to get back into maiden energy, man. That sounds like fun. Does anybody else feel like they have any attachment to maiden energy at this time?
I don't know. I feel like almost you're not allowed to embody the maiden energy in Christianity.
Did you say that you feel like you're almost not allowed to embody maiden energy?
Yeah, like when you're in Christianity.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's sultry, it's sexy, it's innocent, you know, like, Yeah, it's so interesting when you think about it, like through the lens of Christianity, because you're just like, you know, you never really get the ability to be innocent until you're, you know, like, but unless you're like younger than 7 years old, because like you are a broken sinner, and you're a martyr for Christ, and you're spending your entire life just trying to make up for being a pitiful, sinful human being. You know what I mean? Like, you never really get like this, the softness of like being able to just be kind of blameless, you know? Yeah. It's funny because my son, my oldest son, Judah, has Asperger's, so everything's very black and white. And somebody asked me like a year or two ago, like, aren't you afraid that like, you know, he might suffer without like, you know, the good news of Christ? And I was like, hell no. Like, no, I cannot let my son, who literally gets suicidal when he thinks that he's in trouble, like Christianity is dangerous for my son. Like, I cannot let him learn about Christianity. If anything, like, it is dangerous. And this person looked at me like I was crazy. Yep. Anybody else have any connection or thoughts on the maiden energy?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
So do you remember when we were talking about these 3 stages and I kept saying I was the crone? And then when you flipped up those 3 pictures earlier, I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not the crone. Yeah, I'm going to be the maiden, except for where it says unable to make good decisions and problem solve. Yeah, so I'll be the maiden.
So it's funny though, it's always funny. There's like, I remember I went to this amazing workshop on Maiden Mother Crone a long time ago, like before COVID. And there's this woman in there. She's still my friend. Her name is Renee. And she lives in Yellow Springs. I feel like you two would be great friends. And she also was very resistant to, she never had children. So she was very resistant to being anything other than maiden. And I have watched her, that was like 5 years ago. I have watched her develop her relationship with her internal mother and then her crone. And it has been wild. Now, at the end of the day, she is like a total Gemini, peace-loving hippie that lives out in Yellow Springs. She's so maiden energy. You guys remind me of each other a little bit in some ways. She's just happy. She's just happy. And like, but being able to watch her get into her crone has been really cool because it's been a growth experience for her. And the other thing about recognizing the maiden mother crone is that instead of like working with goddess as a deity, you could also just work with these archetypes of maiden mother crone versus like actually working with some sense of like an actual deity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Abigail? Any thoughts on maiden?
I think I'm definitely channeling a little bit of that energy right now. And I think it feels really good because I'm coming out of like some really long commitments, and it kind of feels like I'm experiencing true freedom for the first time in my life. So it just feels like the world is full of possibilities and I want to try all these things. And it feels really nice.
Yeah. And the maiden, again, like she's right now, this is her time of the year, is like early springtime. The blossoming of flowers, fetch, which is what's like that kind of like fairy energy, like whimsical. She's very maiden. So yeah, I love that. Very good. Okay. Now the mother. One thing you have to touch on with the mother is that you don't physically have to have children to be in mother energy or to ever cultivate it. Although it does help because like you can't escape motherhood for sure. So the mother phase of life is represented by the full moon and ovulation. All right. The fullest part of your life is associated with Lunicid and Mabon, which are the harvest festivals. This part of the triple goddess is associated with motherhood and has been long associated with safety, love, security, and home. It represents the fullness of life, the growing season, and the start of harvest festivals. The mother part is responsible, problem-solving, protective, and caring. And the mother is represented by goddesses such as Seers, Demeter, and Lakshmi. Okay, there's a lot of them, but these are just some of them. Does anybody have any connection to the mother that they'd want to share? I'm like, this is where I'm at, guys. Like all the goddesses that I connect to are like very mother goddess. And I'm like, get me back to maiden. Okay, very good. And then our last is the crone. So the crone is represented by the waning moon, dark moon. When the cycle comes to an end and a new beginning starts, the crone is full of wisdom and life experience. In the wheel of the year, she's associated with Samhain and Yule, when the days grow dark and the harvest comes to an end. The crone has long been associated with aging, pain, fear, and bitterness. But beyond this superficial association, the crone can represent our own innate wisdom and strength. The crone is represented through archetypes such as the Slavic Baba Yaga, the Hindu goddess Kali, and the Celtic Kaliak. Does anybody have any connection to the crone that they want to share or thoughts?
I don't know. I personally, I love the crone. Like, I can't wait to embody the crone.
Yeah. I love the crone as well. I've spent a lot of energy in crone energy. And like I said, I'm like, get me back to the maiden. But what's nice and like what the point of these teachings is to show us how we cycle in and out of these phases of our lives throughout the entirety of our lives. And that even some seasons of our lives have the crone in them, and some seasons of our lives have the maiden in them, and some seasons of our lives have the mother. And even like for people that have uteruses in general, like we experience the entire maiden, mother, crone every ovulation cycle. Like every time that we get our cycle, we experience all three aspects in one. So it's important to recognize, like at the core teaching of the triple goddess is recognizing she represents cycles and seasons that can be encompassed throughout the entirety of life and even just one moon cycle. Okay. Okay. All right. So oracle and ritual. I actually want to close with this, and instead I want to talk about altar really quick, because we spent a little bit more time in discussion, which I thought was really good discussion, but I just want to move really quickly into this process. All right. So you guys will have this, obviously you'll be able to save this, but this is the steps to creating a goddess altar if you want to create one. Okay. So I'm gonna walk you through the steps in a simple, and you can make this like a huge thing. This is like the ritual thing that I would like for you guys to do. Remember that, and we'll figure this out when we do our oracle. That's what we'll finish our class on, is you're trying to get some sense if you are really like working to create a connection with deity, or if you're really just trying to connect with cultivating a part of yourself through an archetype. All right. Like that's an important thing to recognize, because one thing that you could make the altar to is like to honor the crone within me, you know, to honor the maiden within me, to honor the mother within me, or to all mothers, right? So like, for example, Mother's Day, every Mother's Day, I resurrect a mother's altar and I send out energy to mothers everywhere, you know, like you can create these altars. And this is like the basis of like creating altars. I teach a lot about altar creation in the apprenticeship and then Ancestral Witch. So this is the small teaching. This is like a whole thing. This is like a whole process of like priestesshood, you know, or being in spiritual reverence, but knowing how to construct an altar and deconstruct an altar is a big part of witchcraft in general. Like just through the divine feminine is knowing how to honor through like constructing altars in different parts of your life. Okay. So let's get to it. I am going to use what is the word? A chair. I'm going to use a chair, and I'm just going to show you how to set it up using a chair. So give me 1 second to grab it. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Let me make sure you can see. Hold on one second. Okay, yeah, you can see this. Can you see my chair?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I still see the,
Can you see this? Oh, I can't hear you, Cheryl. You see, I hear you. I hear you. I get what you're saying. Hold on. Let me stop the share on this. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Okay. Okay, can you see my chair now?
yes.
Okay, good. All right. So we're gonna just move through our thing. So step 1, pick the direction that you want to honor and the goddess that you're wanting to connect with, and then find a spot or a piece of furniture. So you don't have to build it like on a, like I have all kinds of altars. I'm just showing you how to create one really quickly. So like if you have like an entryway table, you can create a coffee table, you can create altars anywhere. Here's the only thing you need to know about an altar. Oftentimes, we don't know how long it's going to want to be there until we construct it. So whatever you construct it on and wherever you construct it, recognize that you might not get that piece of furniture back for a little while. Like I've learned this the hard way. If you put it on a piece of furniture, you know, I've been able to like move my furniture around, but like I have constructed altars with like people like spontaneously in like a circle, and they were like, we can't deconstruct this for like a long time, you know, and then you got to like take the whole thing and like go somewhere. So just think about that. All right. I thought about that with this chair. I was like, what am I going to do if like Lakshmi wants to keep this chair? Like, well, I'm going to find another chair. But I didn't have any other furniture just to work with right now that I could just easily move and show you. So if I lose a chair, I lose a chair. It'll be fine. You can also like deconstruct it and like move it to somewhere else. But I'm just saying, like, just be mindful of like that. All right. So I've got my chair, and I'm actually going to set it over like here, which is my southern wall. So I'm going to honor the fire and honor the south. All right. So that's where I'll move it eventually. And then the second step is, hold on, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Cleanse the furniture with smoke and water, and then draw the triple goddess sigil on the furniture with water, then lay down a cloth. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Just hang tight and watch me for a minute. Okay. I've got some dragon's blood covered sage. Just going to use a small piece. Okay. And I'm just going to smoke clear it really quick. Okay. Then I've got some water, moon water from the Cancer full moon. And I'm going to just take a little bit of it. And I'm going to go in some clockwise circles. If you don't want to do it like that, you can also just take a little bit of it and kind of like sprinkle water over it like that. Okay. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of it with my finger, and then I'm going to draw the triple goddess symbol. So I'm going to draw the full moon, and then the maiden and the crown. All right. Now, that is something you can do all the time, anytime, because the triple goddess is a very protective sigil. You can use your water, like your moon water, put it over like your walls, put it over each doorstep. You can use it and draw it. It's a very protective symbol. You can use it anywhere. Okay. All right. Now I've got that ready. And then here I've got an altar cloth. Now you don't have to use one of these, just so you know, but I'm working with a Hindu goddess, so I'm going to keep the chakras. So I'm gonna set this down. One reason that you might want to use one though, is like if you have a nice piece of furniture, so you don't get like water rings on it or like incense and stuff, you'll be able to wash. You'll be able to wash it. All right, so we are now at step 3. All right, so step 3, honor all of the elements by adding at least one of the things that represents the elements. So a cup of water or a shell, a candle, which is fire, a bowl of dirt from your land area or crystals, and some incense or a smoke wand. All right. These represent all of the elements. You want these when you're casting a spell. Okay. Only you can decide if this altar is like what you would call an active spell working altar. I'm not going to get into all of that here. That's stuff that I teach in, again, apprenticeship, but like the big thing is like, if you want it to be an active altar, like something that you would put like a spell jar on, then you want to make sure you've got all the elements present. Okay. So for now, I'm going to take this because it's already got smoke going. Okay. And then I would take my candle that my sweet husband gave me for the Valentine's Day. Some crystals. And then a little bit of this moon water in a cup. Okay. Now the water is an important part. Keeping the water clean and clear is an important part, especially if you were working with like ancestors. All right. So as of now, I have everything that I need to make an active spell altar. Okay. Got all the elements. It's ready to go. Now, here's where we get to the more specific steps. Okay. So step 4, do some research to find the correlations to the goddess you're wanting to work with and make a list of her attributes. Some examples, things like colors, herbs, stones, flowers, etc. So for example, like Bridget is very closely tied to cows. I found a literal cow bone randomly in Hawaii, like a cow spine vertebrae in Hawaii. So like I use that on my altar because it represents Bridget, right? Like how cool is that to have found? And then, you know, like I have a picture of Bridget, right? A picture is really nice thing to have. I've got like a Bridget's cross that I made her. I've got part of the snake skin shed that one of my snakes left me. She's associated with a serpent. I've got dried like tiger lily petals as an offering. And then I have like anything else that I want to honor her with. So like up on this is my biggest altar. Let me show you guys. So up here, this is my like big goddess altar. All right. All of like, this is meant for honoring. I don't really necessarily put a lot of petitions up here unless I really need help. I have multiple altars, but this is like its point is to honor the goddess. All right. And so if you can see, I have like fresh flowers up here. Like there are always fresh flowers on my goddess altar. Always. There is always a cup of red wine on my altar. Always. I change it every new moon, every first quarter moon, every full moon, every last quarter moon, every dark moon, every time. When I'm done with it, I go outside and I give that wine offering to the land spirits and I tell them thank you. All right. This is something that I keep very close to me. All right. So for example, Lakshmi loves red roses. All right. And that's who I'm making this altar for. So let me show you. All right. Now, here I have a statue of Lakshmi, and here I have a picture of Lakshmi. I'm going to use both. I'm going to take this picture of Lakshmi, and I'm going to set it here to honor her. And then I'm going to take this statue, and then I'm going to set it right here like this. And then I'm going to take this rose, and I'm going to set it here as an offering. Okay. Now, one of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to take some dried roses that are from a bouquet that Justin gave me. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to like pull it apart, and I'm going to take these dried rose petals and I'm going to set it in front of her as an offering. Okay. Then anything that makes me think of Lakshmi, I will continue to add any like little elements on there. All right. Which is something I'm going to have you guys do here in a minute. Now, in terms of the next step, step 5, once you get a sense of the correlations, make an effort to put things that represent her on your altar, as well as a picture or write her name. All right. Step 6, then make your petition on a handwritten note / scroll, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and then leave her an offering of fresh flowers, food, drink, etc., especially on new and full moons. All right, so I'll talk about the maintenance in here in a second. So let me show you. On my major altar, I have a petition. I have a scroll of my intentions that I need help from the great goddess. In here is a heartfelt handwritten note that is like, help me in this area of my life, okay? And I leave it there. But here's the thing. Here's the difference between working with the goddess and like what I experienced in masculine culture is that it is an equal energetic exchange. You want to give an offering and you want to give gratitude. All right. So then I would take this offering and I would set it right here. And then depending on what this goddess wants, like they all have different things that they want, I would leave like a glass of red wine here for her. All right. That would be part of an offering. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the last step, and then we'll get into the process of it. The last step, light a candle on her altar as well as incense every day. When you feel complete with the work, release it back to the earth by placing the associations outside for a little bit, deconstruct the altar and cleanse the space. You can leave it up however long that you feel close to it. All right, so I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm moving her over here. Okay. You see her? Okay, so does that sound doable? Does that sound like something you want to do? Okay, cool. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to get into some of the more like experimental parts where you guys can ask some questions. I'm going to pull a card for each of you from the goddess deck and see if there's a goddess that makes sense that wants to connect. You can also, if you want, just decide like, I want to work with this goddess. I've been feeling drawn to this goddess. Or you can be like, I want to work with this part of the triple goddess. All right. Did any of those already like make sense to you? Do any of you already feel like, I want to work with this goddess, or I know I want to do this? Does anybody feel that yet? Cheryl, do you?
Yeah, but I don't want to say who. I want to see if you pull a card, who comes up.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Oh, I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just remember, I'm pulling for you. So it can be different, but almost all of the goddesses all have some sort of similarity. Okay. Because remember, they're all same aspect of the same whole. Okay.
You always pull the same thing. You always pull the right card.
I don't know. I try.
Yeah, you do. And then you laugh. You start laughing. See?
It's just because I'm really close to them. I've worked really very, very hard and intensely with just trying to connect. But I'm a Libra, you know, at the end of the day, like that's my job, is to try to connect. So, all right, let me get to it. Cheryl Graham, please. Who is the goddess that is wanting to connect to Cheryl Graham, please, and help her cultivate and develop certain parts of herself? Cheryl Graham, please. That one. You had Ellen of the Ways pop out. I don't know if you've ever had Ellen of the Ways pop out. Is this for Cheryl? It's saying, yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna pull one more.
Okay.
You had Anya as well. She's a fairy queen of love.
See?
She's a fairy queen of love and transformation. And I'm gonna put one more for you. Cheryl Graham, please. You got Epona. She's a goddess, a horse goddess of leadership. She's Greek. She's Celtic. She's amazing. Yeah, she's like a horse tribe. I love her. I've been pulling her a lot lately because I've been like getting really drawn to horse spirit. Okay, so one of the things I will name for you around this, Cheryl, is that all three of these are Celtic. Okay. All three of them are Celtic. This one is like, they're all Celtic. I think she's Welsh. Anya is Irish because she's part of the Tuatha De Danann, which is like the tribe of Fae that lives under Ireland in the city, if you've ever gotten into their mythology. And then Ellen of the Ways is also Welsh. And so Ellen of the Ways is like, pay attention to the paths that are opening and the ones that are closing. So she's very much like, pay attention to the doors that are meant for you. All of them are sovereignty goddesses. So that's another thing. Like all of them kind of answer to their own sense of self. Okay. Those are some of the things I noticed about that.
Thank you.
All right. So you just meditate on that for a minute. See if any of that sticks out. Okay. All right. Rebecca M, please. Who's the goddess that wants to work with Rebecca M right now? Okay. Rebecca, you got Green Tara, which is she's super protective. She's the goddess of protection in Buddhist, in Buddhist theology. Okay. Who else? Oh, on the bottom of that, you had Lilith, just so you know. Who else for Rebecca, please? Hold on, I just want you to look at this. Do you see this? She was like, wait. Lilith. Okay. She just very, very much wanted to make sure that you were in the mix. All right, and last one, please. Rebecca M, please. Rebecca M. They're telling me you got what you need. Okay. All right. So you have Green Tara and Lilith. I want you to start Googling Green Tara goddess and Lilith goddess. All right. Same for you, Cheryl. Start doing some research on the three that you had and see if any of them stick out. All right. All right. And then Abigail. Abigail, please. Oh, whoa, okay. Abigail, you had Matisse, which is the goddess of wisdom, and Danu pop out immediately. She's the creatrix goddess of the Celtic pantheon. So she's like their mother goddess, that like created the world in the Celtic pantheon. And then does anybody else? Yes. Okay. All right. Abigail, please. Last one. Okay. Okay. And then you got Demeter and you got Persephone together. These are very important to recognize together because Demeter is Persephone's mother. All right. Whenever you see these two together, it's interesting because Demeter is the mother, Persephone is the maiden, and Hecate is the crone. So those are the That's like the three parts of the Greek triple goddess. All right. So do some research on these and start seeing like, and notice if like any of them like particularly stick out to you. All right. Like Persephone kind of sticks out to me for you. Yeah. So do write those names down: Demeter and Persephone, Matisse and Danu. All right. And then I'm going to give you guys about 7 minutes to do some like quick Googling and some oracle work or tarot work to ask some questions. And then we'll close out with all of this. And then you'll know how to like go and make your own altar. Make sense? Okay, cool. All right. So give me a second to screen share with you, so you can see it. Okay, can you guys see the oracle spread? Okay, so card 1, card 2, card 3. Card 1. What is this goddess helping me cultivate? Card 2, what needs to be released to work with her? And card 3, what energy do I need to focus on the most at this time? All right. So the first step of this though is really like being able to hone down on which goddess am I talking about. So that's the first step. Also, if you recognize that you're working, you can also just work with great goddess energy. If you're like, I don't know, you can also just work with like great goddess energy in general. That works. Or you can also work with like the maiden archetype, the mother archetype, or the crone archetype. Okay. I teach this in all my big programs, and that is like, we go macro, like as big as we can get. And then we go micro, 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 till we get to the most personal version for you. All right. You got to start somewhere. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. I'll be right here. And I'm going to give you guys 7 minutes to do some of this. And then we'll finish the rest of the time, like just processing and like getting you guys prepared, and then we'll close. Okay. All right. I'll see you in 7 minutes. All right, everybody, come on back. How'd it go? Were you able to connect to anything that feels like at least a starting point? Somebody share something with me so we have somewhere to start with.
I picked Anya.
Yeah, she's so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were reading about her, was there anything that like stuck out to you that you're like, yeah, I want to cultivate this?
I picked her because I liked it. Talked about being adaptable.
Yeah.
So familiar you, the one who's used to your comfort zone is now invited to dance in uncharted territory. So I like that. It's who do I need to become in order to experience this life I desire?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's really, I have to be willing to change. What in me needs to shift so I can welcome this amazing abundance. So that's why I went with her.
I love that.
Yeah. So, and then on the 3 questions, I'm not quite sure I really understand them, because for the one, what is the goddess helping me cultivate? I got the Queen of Cups. And in that, it talks about, let's see here, loving, caring, supportive nature brings suitors, deepening existing relationships.
Yeah. It's
Caring
like all the things.
Oh, of course I don't understand that.
Suitors, new relationships, changeability. I mean, what? How do you not see it?
Hello, I'm blonde.
She's like the queen of love in the tarot, like she's also very kind and compassionate and patient. One of her big attributes is patience. And she's very intuitive. So out of all of the goddesses, or sorry, not the goddesses, but out of all the queens, she is the most in touch with her intuition and her felt sense, right? So what Anya is trying to teach you is how to be intuitive about when you need to shapeshift, essentially.
Wow.
Right? That's part of what she's trying to help you recognize, is like, and it makes me think of like you as to who you really are, which is this version of you, versus I'm sure who you have to be as engineer Cheryl in like dusty old Air Force base Cheryl, right? Like you have to be adaptable. You're gonna have to like put on that mask and take off that mask, right? And not associate yourself with this mask that you're having to put back on by having to go back into work, right?
Mhm.
So it makes sense to me that you would pick Anya. Okay, so what are some things to you that you might think about when you think about like being adaptable, like physical things?
Some physical things.
Yeah, like what? So for example, when I think of like a shapeshifter, I think of a mask. I think of a hat, like all the different hats you have to wear, right? So it's like when you think about adaptability for you, what do you think about?
You mean to be in a relationship?
No, just outright. Like I'm trying to think of like some things that you might put on your altar that are like symbols of adaptability. So like another example would be like water, like a cup of water. Water is super adaptable. It can be a gas, it can be a solid, and it can be a liquid, but it's the same thing, but it can take multiple shapes, right? So like when you think about things that like are adaptable and shift and change, what comes to your mind? And don't overthink it. I'm going to be Jessica here, like trying to interpret a dream. Tell me the first 3 things that come to your mind.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. So water would be a good one. All right. And then maybe like your badge that you have to wear when you go onto base, put that on the altar every day. Maybe like a ring that you put on that is like creates the shift. So shape shifting is another form of what we call shamanism. And so it means that you have to recognize, like, you have to recognize when you're shifting roles. All right. And it's part of like your Gemini rising. So like you have to recognize for yourself when you're in this role and when you're in that role, so you don't get lost playing a role that isn't really you.
Oh, we talked about that before.
Yep. So remember how I was like, maybe you need like a ring that like
Yeah.
you put on when you go to work,
Yeah.
because this symbolizes to you, this is not who I really am. This is what I have to do to claim my retirement so I can move the hell out of Ohio and go live on the beach and like be happy forever after. You
Yeah.
need, like, that's what Anya says to me for you, is like, you need something that like allows you to recognize this is not who you really are. This is what you do to survive. Who you really are is this like lighthearted goddess, right? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? So it's like you need something that's going to help you, for you, recognize why adaptability is helpful for you in this season.
Yeah, I think I need to buy myself some kind of earrings
Yeah.
that
Okay.
I can wear when I'm not at work.
Yeah. Yeah. Earrings sound great. Like something that you know that you put on when you like leave your house to go to this thing and you take off when you get back home.
Yeah, I wear my earrings when I'm not at work. Or like
Yeah.
something wild, like feathers or something like that.
Yeah. As long as it serves you. Like, so for me, I have certain hats, like physical hats, like you'll see in apprenticeship, like when we do our big ritual, I wear a lot of red and I wear a hat, and it is like a physical symbol to everyone that's like, I'm in big priestess energy right now. You're not going to get the super nice Lauren. You're going to get like big witch energy, Lauren. It is a symbol for everyone, but also for myself, that this is a role I'm stepping into and a role that I'm stepping out of. It does not encompass me, right?
Yeah.
Because I am who I am. These are just roles. So it's like trying not to get yourself lost in the role.
Yeah.
Okay. Good work.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Who else? Who wants to go next? Go ahead, Abigail.
The one that stood out to me was Danu,
Okay.
just because when you were asking before if we had any like goddesses that have really come up for us, I was thinking like, no, not really. I don't. Like, I think the energy I'm stepping into right now is trusting myself to be creative, or letting that kind of flow out.
Yeah.
And being able to try a lot of different things. And I was like, I don't really know about a goddess who's like that. So I think, yeah, I think that one kind of stood out to me. But then when I was pulling cards, it didn't really seem to like match that energy. So I don't really know if I'm just need to like think about it a little bit to figure out how that's supposed to interpret into my life. But for the cultivating one, I got the witness, which is kind of like not doing anything and just allowing things to happen. And then for what needs to be released, I got flow. So that seemed kind of opposite, unless, I don't know, I need to flow in order to release things, because I also pulled the Tree of Life reversed and the giveaway for that one. And I think that's releasing the idea that I'm responsible for everybody else.
Yeah.
Or to mother everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think, and then the last one, for what energy do I need to focus on? It was the Hunter, which is like rely on your own skills, and then the Coyote, which is like any detours and distractions. So I don't know. I think I need to think about it a little bit more. Or I don't know if you have any thoughts.
A goddess that sticks out to me for you, if you wanted to connect to one, would be it would be Artemis. She's the goddess of the hunt. Or it would be Bridget. So Bridget is the goddess of inspiration and creativity. She literally is the goddess of the smith. She makes jewelry. Like, she makes jewelry, she makes swords, she writes poetry, she paints. Like, Bridget is the daughter of Danu. Okay. So like that would sticks out. And then Artemis, she is the goddess of the wild hunt. And she's also known as Diana. And she has a bow and her focus is on attention. And that is like wherever your bow fires, that is where your attention goes. And so she's very closely associated with being in the wild and the wolf. So, you know, like there's that. There's also just the general archetype of the wild woman, which you fit into for me. I like when I think of you, I'm like, oh, she's on the wild woman path. Like that is also a whole archetype that can be worked with in terms of like, you know, an archetype that you want to cultivate within your life. But I want to read you what Danu says, like the card says, because I think it will make more sense if I read it to you. So her card is assurance. So the appearance of this Celtic earth goddess Danu, who gave birth to magic, portends the fulfillment of your desires and the fruition of your dreams. Whatever it is that you are inquiring about, Danu gives her assurance that you're in the process of becoming. Now is the time to trust that whatever you've planted, planned, and worked towards is being lovingly birthed. And all you need to do is just stay with the flow of events and be ready for your next opportunity. Everything has its perfect season. Just as fallow ground creates the promise of new life that appears again in the spring, as if magically bidden from the invisible to the visible, Danu offers her promise of grounded assurance. So when you see Danu, it's like a sign of protection because her story is like the story of the Celtic mythology. She is the creatrix of the Celtic mythology. And the story is that she gives birth to Dagda from an oak tree seed. So like, it is the idea that like you plant seeds in a whole season and it takes a whole season to see the fruition of it and to trust that the seed that you plant will sustain you. So it makes me think of like all of the seeds that you've planted, whether that is your service, whether that is going to school, whether that is your jewelry and your creativity. Like it's like the seeds that you plant need time to grow and they will like provide for you in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay.
And I think you're right, or maybe working with an archetype is a better idea, because even reading like Women Who Run with the Wolves, that helped me release a lot of things, or like come to terms with a lot of things on its own. And I think maybe that's what I need to focus on right now versus like, I don't know, I don't really feel Freya is the only goddess that has ever really felt like
Freya makes sense too.
Yeah. And I think part of that kind of scares me too, because she's very associated with my northern line. And that's not the energy that I really want to step into right now. It doesn't really,
well, just because Freya is associated with your northern line doesn't mean you'll be working with your northern line. It just means that like when they find you, it's really hard. Like when one of these goddess energies like pins you down, you can't run from them. Like they will always be with you. It's just whether or not you choose to acknowledge them or not. Like they will protect you, they'll be with you, and they always have something for you, like a medicine for you, right? And Freya is very protective. You remind me of Freya. Like your face is like very much what Freya looks like in like even her imagery and stuff, like the feathers and like the things that you're making. But you know, I think that if you feel comfortable, start with where you feel comfortable. Don't force yourself into something that is against the entirety of feminine teachings in its own right. You know, start with where you're comfortable and recognize that, like, again, working with deity, it doesn't have to start there. And as a matter of fact, I almost always encourage people, don't start with deity. Start with the deity and what attributes she's trying to cultivate within you. That's why I ask these questions to be looked at, like, what is it trying to cultivate? And then you work with the theme that's trying to be cultivated in you through her mythical lens. It's not necessarily about working with them as a deity and like surrendering your life to them. Like, I'm not into that. I don't teach you guys that. It's more so of like working in collaboration with them because they're trying to help develop some part of you to make you whole, right? Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, very good. All right, Rebecca, did you want to share yours?
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by the green Tara, but in reading about her, she kind of sounded almost like a female Christ figure, and I don't know that I'm like ready for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Lilith I'm not there yet. Like she's waiting for me and I'll get there.
She's patient, don't worry.
Yeah. So I think I might just stick with just great goddess, triple goddess energy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and at the beginning, you even said like you really have to own your own sovereignty and
Yes.
really trust your intuition. I feel like I'm still sort of getting there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I sort of settled. I did draw some cards and they don't make a lot of sense to me, but for what is this goddess helping me cultivate, I got the 5 of Swords.
Okay.
And then for what needs to be released, I got the 4 of Cups reversed.
Okay.
And then for what I need to focus on the most, I got the 10 of Swords reversed.
Okay. All right. So swords are air, they're mind. So what you are cultivating, the 5 of Swords, that's what you pulled, right? The 5 of Swords.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to mentally work through conflict, to not get stuck in your mind in the conflict and the ruminating thoughts, to be able to move all the way through it. The thing that needs to be released is the 4 of Cups reversed, and that is letting go of your nostalgic idea of what a happy home was going to look like. And the thing that, what was the question for the last one again?
So what I need to focus on the most is the 10 of Swords reversed.
Yeah. So coming out of the cage of the mind, coming out of being like stuck in your mind. Like the heavy burdens of your mind are trying to let go of, like, don't cling to them. So it makes sense to me why you would pull the green Tara, just so you know. So the green Tara, she's Christ consciousness, but like a lot of these energies are Christ consciousness. We just really get Christ completely wrong, like in our human ways. And so what she is about is like, don't attach. Like she is a female Buddha. So like, let it go. Like attachment to this thing is only going to lead to suffering, is what she says. Okay. Because she's Buddhist. And so for her, she's like, release these attachments, as they're only creating more suffering for you. Hand them over, and like be free, is essentially what she's trying to. If you really read Jesus Christ, like he is fucking Buddhist, okay? Like he is Buddhist. We made him like the gun-toting, Budweiser drinking, version of Christ that he is not that. Jesus Christ is a Buddhist and a yogi, actually. There's like ancient texts saying that from the time between, he is documented as a child in the Bible to when he comes back and he's 33, that he went to India and like studied to become a yogi. So like there's like, all of these stories about this Christ-like figure that is white and Jewish that is over in India studying Buddhism. And like Jesus is Buddha. He's the same incarnation. And so when we look at green Tara, and like a lot of what your cards are telling you is to let go, because the holding on to the mind is creating the suffering that you're experiencing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think I do really get stuck thinking things through over and over and over and not doing anything, like not making any progress or taking any action. So yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
So the green Tara is fierce. She is not like Kuan Yin, which Kuan Yin is fierce too. Kuan Yin is much like a Buddhist feminine Jesus as well. But you have to understand that we have really fucked up the idea of Christ. Okay. It is not like Jesus is not who, we've made him to be. We've made him an idol, and we've given him these characteristics that are not true to his mission, which was to free our minds, because the mind is our karma. Like that is the thing. Like our minds are our karma. There is nothing else. The things that separate us, or like seemingly separate us from the mind of Christ, is our mind. Like that's it. And so like all of these teachings, and especially the teachings of like the Buddhas and Kuan Yins, and there are, they're called dakinis. The dakinis are fierce, man. They're like Lilith. They're like Lilith and Kali. They give you kind of these like, they're very like peaceful. No, they're not. They are like swords of truth that cut away the illusions of the mind. And we're forced to face the things, and we're forced to radically accept and surrender so that we're free. Because true liberation, that the green Tara would say, is to liberate your mind of suffering through radical acceptance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think I need to read more about her and really just think about that, because that does sound like kind of the direction I need to sort of send my energy. Yeah.
So, I mean, like anytime I see any of the Taras, it's about the mind and it's a Buddhist path. All right. So I spent a whole year, a hardcore year after my 200-hour yoga instructor training, studying Buddhism. And I think honestly, like at the end of the day, what I really am is a Buddhist. Like I really think at the end of the day, like as I close out my life, I think I'll be Buddhist. I regardless come through the lens of femininity. Like I am not like connected to Mahatma. Like I'm not attracted to the Buddha. Like it's just not, but I love Kuan Yin and I love the Taras. I love the Dakinis. And that is what is known as Tantra. And so the Buddhist lineage of Tantra is the left-handed path that has the Dakinis. And I can send you some books. I can send you some resources if you're interested in that.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the left-handed path, which is always witchcraft. Like, and when I say witchcraft, like, I feel like I consistently have to keep reminding people, witchcraft is just healing. That's all witchcraft really is. At the end of the day, witchcraft is healing and learning how to work with energy versus against it. It is called witchcraft, and I embrace witchcraft because I am a rebel in general, but also because in Christianity, they told us that the seed of rebellion is witchcraft. And if the rebellion is extremely convoluted, white, patriarchal bullshit, then yeah, I'm a witch. Sounds great, right? Like, cool, sounds great. So you have to understand, anytime you see the left-handed feminine path, it is almost always treated as crazy or scary or misunderstood or dark. And it just pisses me off because we are the birth givers, right? Like the fact that we have been so like roiled up in all of this because of patriarchy, it just makes me want to burn, and therefore is the witchcraft part, right? So at the end of the day, the green Tara makes sense for you, actually.
Yeah. Now that we've talked it through, it makes a lot more sense.
I'll send you some stuff. I mean, like Lilith and green Tara makes sense to me because you're like, I recognize, like, I need to know myself and I need to recognize my own sovereignty. That's Lilith as well. That's the core message of Lilith as well.
Yeah.
All right. So
I
know
think with
myself. Go ahead. Sorry.
With Lilith, I get stuck in like her sexuality and that part of her. And so that's why I feel like maybe I'm not ready for that, but I feel like I will be really soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen your chart. Lilith makes a lot of sense to me at some point. Yeah. Like, but I'm also very sexual, but I don't live there anymore. I needed it to cultivate the energy to get free. But that's not what my entire life is about anymore. It was for a season, like being the rebel, being like the hardcore witch, being Lilith. That was like a huge part of my path. And I worked with Lilith during that, and Kali. She is still with me. She's never not with me. But I don't feel the need currently in this cycle of my life to be completely like enraptured in that part of the goddess right now. Now the goddess energy for me is moving to a different energy. This is the power of the goddess, because at the end of the day, what the goddess really teaches us is cycles: death, life, rebirth, primordial darkness, birth, death, life, right? Like it's over and over, it's spiraling and it's organic. It's not stuck. It's not this trope of like the everlasting God that is unchanging and the word that doesn't change. Like, it's not that. The goddess teachings are like, that may be true for now, but next year I might feel different. And that's okay. Like that is part of the goddess, because she is cycles, she is seasons, and she moves with what feels right to her in the moment. Okay. Where the goddess needs support from the masculine is learning how to hold, even when feelings and emotions can tell us something different. We need the sacred masculine to create the container of safety for us to rage against something like the waves of the ocean and then calm back down and be the ocean. You know what I mean? Like we need the masculine. It's just the way that it has been weaponized has to change. You know, we need both to be whole, both as above and so below. Make sense? Okay. All right, my friends. Well, this is a great class. Thanks for joining me. I hope that you guys feel like empowered to start working on crafting an altar. Like no matter what, even if the altar is for yourself as goddess, I strongly encourage you to do that. That is, just so you know, in the apprenticeship, we do a whole teaching for a month on I am the goddess, and we learn a lot of this, and then we step in as our own form of goddess. And because you are. So, you know, another thing you can always do is you can make an altar to yourself. You can make an altar as to how you want to cultivate yourself. You could put things on your altar that you know you want to cultivate. Could be things like financial stability. It could be things like self-love and acceptance. So you can always create altars to whatever you want. But I just wanted to start with this as an example. Okay. All right, my friends, I will see you at Mystic Musings for March, which I think is like the 13th or something. I don't remember what day it is. I can't remember. I think it's like I don't remember. Go to the events and make sure that you request a card, okay? All right,
Thank
y'all have a
you.
beautiful day. I'll see you next time.
Thank
Hey,
you.
bye.